Today, I have a very special guest, Sidney Rigden. He is a author of a book called Fear of the Unknown. And today's going to be a really interesting show because we're going to talk about how he overcame his depression, his PTSD. Sidney is a vet and he's also a medic. And through his experiences through war and working as a medic, his challenges that he's seen some of the scariest tragedies and it's caused a lot of trauma and he found a pathway out of that. So today we're going to talk about that and we're going to talk about his book and we're going to talk about his path in Taoism, his spiritual pathway to be able to find that space within. So let's get started. Life is not easy. You are not broken. Even though it may feel as though you are, broken means it can't be fixed. However, you can be exactly what you desire to be. And today I have an amazing guest, Sidney Rigden, author of the book Fear of the Unknown.
A lot of, I guess to say bluntly, civilians, uh, they don't realize that the PTSD, depression, anxiety that can come from emergency services like police, fire, EMS, even dispatchers. People hate to compare the two, but people that have done both understand that you can get severe PTSD from either job. I've seen myself much worse things um, being a paramedic than I did in Iraq, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. It,
Wow.
it but
That's
that doesn't
quite,
mean, I've had buddies that seen far worse than me in Iraq too, you know what I mean?
oh yeah, yeah.
So,
So I want by the way, I read your book and I love I love the way you wrote it. I was able to read it quickly first off, and it was an easy read. Like it
thank you.
flowed very well. I was really quite impressed at how you were kind of telling your story. But what I want to do is I want to kind of start off with where you came from and then kind of go to how you healed
Sure.
and then why you wrote your book. Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what you were experiencing, the depression, the PTSD, the anxiety, all I mean, like, let's just dive into the pain really deep
Yeah.
because, because most people don't know how to overcome this. And when they understand that you've been there, it's so much easier to read a book about something that tells you how to overcome something. But if that person's never really experienced it, it's it's kind of like, yeah, but and you're in a position here where you've literally lived that pain.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about your pain. Like let's get dirty and ugly with it. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
about your pain.
So I'm not really sure where it all originally stemmed from.
Hmm.
Uh, Grew up in not the best family. Dad in and out of jail, prison, whatever. Um, but I always wanted to do more growing up kind of because of that. But once I came home from Iraq, that's when I really noticed the PTSD symptoms. Um, but I don't like my own story, like I didn't, it wasn't like, it wasn't as bad as others. So I don't know why some of us get PTSD the way we do and some of us don't. Like I wasn't in firefights. I don't make things up about that. We were mortared and stuff. But there's something that leaving that I think messes with a lot of veterans. And Sebastian Junger, uh, a war correspondent, talks about it in his book Tribe. And I think a lot of it is just kind of having that bond and camaraderie,
Mhm.
and then coming home to kind of no real purpose again.
Yeah.
Um, so I had these anger issues coming home. I went right to uh, almost went right to college, and coming home from Iraq, going to college, that wasn't the best idea because it was just a lot of my teachers were. on the opposite side of what they believed we should be doing in Iraq or not. And so I dropped out of college. I was going to go for psychology. Um, I fast forward, I was in and out of the VA doing counseling, treatment, medicine, blah, blah, blah. Um, so I got home in 2010, and it took me about 2 years to realize that like I was having these symptoms of PTSD, anxiety, depression. They all kind of mimic each other.
Mhm. Yeah.
Once I, once me and my wife started dating, um, once we found out she was pregnant, I really knew that I wanted to get a handle on things. So I started going to more counseling. Um, but the system, they're kind of just like, well, are you doing your breathing exercises? Are you taking your meds? And they don't now, who I am now, they don't teach you the importance of those breathing exercises, like where they came from and why we should do them. They just say it's to calm your mind, but there's so much more to it that I know now. Anyways, going on about 10 months ago now, I had a real big anger outburst, and I had still in therapy, still on the medicine and stuff like that, but it caused my wife to leave and take the kids. So I mean the pain and the depression got so much worse. Um, and she moved back to our original home 3 hours away with the kids. Um, and I was already getting pretty spiritual because I'm one of the ones that's kind of a conspiracy theorist, and I really like the pyramids and stuff like that. So it all kind of stemmed just learning um about energy in the tablets, and just me kind of diving into always having an obsession to learn more.
Okay,
uh
but before you get into that,
yeah, yeah,
because I have a lot of questions about that. Okay,
yeah,
but before you get into that, let's go back to this pain that you were experiencing. Okay,
yeah,
and you were going to counseling,
yep,
and you were on medication,
yep.
and even though you were on medication, you were still experiencing these symptoms.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we did years of trying SSRIs, moving to SNRIs,
Hmm.
different stuff. Pretty much the next step is lithium. And I am a father, I'm a paramedic. Like, I don't need to be a zombie. I don't need, I see the medications that people get put on every day at work. I know what they do to people. I've been doing it for a while now. Um,
Did they ever diagnose you? Like, did they say bipolar, personality disorder, anything?
they wanted me to, so I do have PTSD, anxiety, depression. They did look into BPD, borderline personality disorder, I think. And but that's never I tested for that, and my psychiatrist said that's not it either. So um
So they never came up with a conclusion.
no.
The reason I'm asking is because I've worked with people who have been diagnosed bipolar personality, issues
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. Um, and by the time we finished our therapy, they weren't they weren't this anymore. They didn't
Sure.
have chronic depression. They weren't bipolar anymore. They weren't,
Yeah.
and so that, you going through this whole other process that shifted you. I was just curious if there was a diagnosis that got altered, but they never came up with something. They thought maybe it was this or maybe it was that, but they never like said, here's your actual problem.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
There are things that I see in the BPD that would make sense, but not completely. Like, because my biggest issue was like just falling into a depression, and
Mhm.
that would, if triggered by, you know, feeling not enough or disrespected or something like that, which pretty much only happened. The rage that would come, but it would only happen in the household, and like it wasn't okay for my family. It wasn't okay for my kids, you
Mhm.
know. and it was something I was actively trying to get a handle on, and I couldn't, not with the meds, not with the counseling, not with the breathing, pretty much anything.
Okay. Okay. So you how many years did you go through counseling?
Um, on and off since probably 2012, 2014, but
Okay.
I've been going steady for 2 years now. Before we moved, I was going on and off. I've gone through probably through the VA system, probably around five different therapists in the last 7 years.
Oh, wow.
But my psychiatrist and my therapist now are awesome.
Okay.
So
Well, that's good. That's
yeah,
good. You finally found somebody that works for you
yeah,
because most people do not do well in the system.
right.
I've just found that they pretty much drag it along, put you on medication, ask you to just talk about your feelings, but or not really offering any kind of help.
Yeah, yep,
It's not really going anywhere.
yep,
It's more like you're just airing it out, which on some levels that's really good to have somebody to air your feelings out so they don't get bottled up, but it's not going to solve the problems if you
right.
don't have any tools. So that's good that you actually found somebody that works for you.
Yeah,
So,
and the problem with that kind of with the VA system, which I understand, and it's government ran and stuff, but a lot of the staff they get are doctors or therapists or people young in their field
mhm,
getting right out of college.
mhm,
So a lot of the therapists that we deal with are people that are there to do the job, not
mhm,
to help you. They're there to do the job. So
mhm,
like my therapist now, she's actually, I don't know how it works for therapists, but she is still in school, but she's working under this other therapist and she's getting her, I don't know, bachelor's or master's in it, but she's an adult. She's a grown woman. She's got grown kids, divorced, like she understands the pains of life.
mhm,
She's there to help you with her knowledge, not
mhm.
just tell you what the book says, you know what I mean?
Right. Right. So so you went through therapy, you went through all this pain, you tried the medications weren't working, and then you started getting interested in like conspiracy theories and esoteric stuff and the whole pyramids of Giza and everything. So how did that lead into this spiritual transformation because you ended up like following the Tao, right?
Yeah, pretty. I try to. I've always been super interested in Buddhism, but like
Hmm.
my whole life being non-materialistic kind of scared me off. Like I get it and I respect it, and I don't want like crazy stuff, but I can't live in a robe my whole life.
Right.
Um, so when I found the Tao, what I like about the Tao is it's a philosophy, not a religion.
Hmm.
I've always liked philosophy. I wanted to go to school for that, but I realized that like unless you're going to get your doctorate, even then it's kind of a hard career to be in.
Hmm.
Um, so uh, following the Tao actually came a little bit after. Um, but yeah, just I think COVID shook everybody up in different ways.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And being a medic and being interested in just all this different stuff, but ultimately leading to understanding a little bit of quantum physics, in learning that everything is energy. The way you speak is prayer, manifestation, blah, blah, blah. And while doing all this and putting it all together from my knowledge, what I'm trying to tell people now that are having these issues when it comes to separating, I guess, brain from conscious,
Hmm.
is that we're still animals. People don't want to realize that we're still animals. So when we have a gut feeling or we have a feeling in our heart, there's a reason for that, and that can be proven through like generational trauma. They're working on proving that right now with mice, or rats, which is super cool. Um, so once I started understanding or trying to understand it, the energy of the world, I guess, and then seeing how many things in the church, I guess, are things that they actively still do, and it's well, they would call it witchcraft, you know. But there's power in the vibrations, the frequencies, stuff like that, and I think a lot of that stuff is hidden from us
Well, wait,
because
like, can you go back for a second? What do you mean it would be considered witchcraft? What would be?
so like when the Vatican might do certain rituals,
Hmm.
and they speak uh in whichever dialect they want for that one.
Yeah, usually
Um,
Latin.
yeah,
Hmm.
there's just a lot of things, how they pray, how they teach. I don't think they teach Christians the true meaning of what prayer is, and that the way you speak is your manifestation. And
Hmm.
I was such a negative person that every day sucked. I didn't want to go to work. My kids were driving me crazy, but that's what they're supposed to do. They're babies. Um, but all I did was talk about the negative. So as an animal and understanding that there's I can't explain it, but knowing that there's something to our words that you can literally fake it until you make it. And it's really hard to do, and a lot of people don't understand the concept. They're like, "Oh, if I just keep telling myself I'll be happy, I'll be happy." Yeah, dude, it's that easy. Like it's not easy, but eventually when you start being grateful every day and start understanding that the words that are coming out of your mouth affect you and your day, and the words that you put out into the open help change the chemistry of your brain to start seeing things in a different light. If you go out and your tire's flat and you're really angry about it and you're freaking out, you're not going to change the tire any faster. So if you can hold on in that situation and say this isn't a big deal, other inconveniences in your life are also going to be not that big of a deal. And when things are so bad and you can start breathing again, you can say, this is okay, I got this. This is good, I got this. And you just gradually progress. And I still can't explain the physics behind it, but I watched it happen. And that's what led me into looking into more of like Taoism, and I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita to learn how to meditate better. I was always a meathead. I didn't believe in yoga and stretching and stuff like that, but now I'm trying to force myself to always give myself the time to sit alone. And now that it's winter up here, unfortunately, the nature aspect isn't as
Hmm.
fun, but
Well, you said some really powerful things. I was actually planning on teaching a class on the power of vibration, um, because, well, let's back up a little bit.
yeah.
One of the things that you talked about is words are magic, okay? And everything that you say can be, especially when it's aligned with emotion,
Mhm.
can actually be created in your life. Now, one of the very first verses in the Bible is, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And 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 so, like, when we're listening to this, the Word, okay, we when you speak any word, you are speaking power. And those when those words come out a certain way, um, they can be manifested into the world based on how you think. Everybody always says it's all about how you think. You need to visualize, you need to think about it. But you can think about something without emotion and you wonder why it's not manifesting. Okay.
Yeah.
When we speak something, there's this thing about vibration, okay? And vibration actually carries something. So like if you look at like I don't have it in front of me, but like you take a bowl, like a singing bowl, and you tap it. And if you were to actually find a way of, seeing how that wave pattern
Oh,
travel,
yeah.
you can see that it goes a certain distance.
Yeah.
Now they've done this thing, Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, they they have mastered the idea of saying something or vibrating something 108 times. And when you do it 108 times, that's the distance between the earth and the moon and the sun. I had no idea, I
Yeah.
actually was doing some research on this, and it's a magical number. Okay. So you take that and you realize that, when you're vibrating, but even when you're speaking, like as I'm speaking right now, there is a vibration to it.
Mhm.
But if we actually go further than that and we speak it in a way like a vibration, like I am powerful, or something like that.
Yeah.
They even say that like when you're trying to invoke a god or an angel or a deity or something, you want to vibrate their name because
Yeah.
you're causing that vibration causes like that wave pattern to go out further. So when you're vibrating, it's your words are powerful, but when you vibrate those words, so like when you notice you get angry, the emotion itself carries that vibration of that word further.
Yeah.
And the same thing with love emotions. And people will try really hard to manifest something by sitting in the state of gratefulness, but a lot of people don't even know what that feeling is. Maybe they've never even had it.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to be said about, you know, understanding vibration, emotion, and understanding the power of words. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there because you were like, I don't understand how it happens. And I'm like, here's how it happens. It's a very powerful thing to utilize your words, your emotions, and your vibration, all three together, can create something extremely powerful. Especially if you use like tools like that come from ancient religions, like 108 times, using incense, using sound bowls to help the vibration travel. There's a lot to all of that. But anyways, moving back to what you were saying. So you understand there was some power to your words and that
Yeah.
you actually created this. But let's get back to
Well,
how did you land on Taoism?
well, I want to add to what you were saying
Okay.
because I agree with you, and I do like most of that I get, and I feel the thing is with things like that, which I think you understand, it's when it comes to dealing with someone that's factual, you can't really show them it because it's more of a feeling unless they're
Right.
open to feeling that, for me it was so not real, but there was so many times in my anger and rage that like and nothing this wasn't physical either. It was just mentally me just but terribly, terribly angry, just breaking doors, doing the typical angry guy stuff. Um, but in raw, pure, no good reason emotion, I told her multiple times, you're just gonna leave me anyways, you
Oh,
know.
wow.
And now that I know what I know, like maybe I did this, but that
Maybe you
was,
should try to reverse it, and the next time you see her, say you'll come back to me eventually.
uh, but no, like that is part of the thing that I understand now that I didn't then because I was a manly man. I was stuck on the science that we were taught. I believed in our systems. I believed in my country. Um, so even though I at a young age liked the idea of Buddhism and stuff, um, nothing really stuck with me, not even the church. But now that I see that there's so much more to it behind all the religions, you can't tell me that one person was right when there's been multiple books like this written. And in these books, what people don't realize is they are, like you said in the beginning was the word. That they're talking about you creating your own life, and that's where I'm not religious, but there's truth in all the books, and if people would read more books, they would understand that.
Right. And I absolutely agree with you 100%. I think that each one of the different masters that have come into this world have come, to give a very powerful message that needed to be
Hmm.
here. And each one of the religions holds something really beautiful that we can learn from.
Yeah.
all of them. I mean,
Yep.
there's not one that I've ran across yet that, doesn't have something beautiful to
Right.
offer.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I grew up Christian and it was
Same.
hardcore Bible banging, thumb thumping, let's
Yeah.
quote a scripture, that kind of stuff. So it's, but I came to understand later on through like studying Hebrew and going into the depths of greater knowledge that a lot of this stuff was mistranslated and misunderstood.
Sure.
So when we're looking at, and you being friends with Travis, you would probably understand that
Yep.
he's all about like, oh, here's what it actually says and here's what it
Yeah.
actually means. And so there's a lot of misunderstanding because people basically through history have basically like shifted it to make it something that they could utilize to control the masses.
Yep.
This is how you behave. This is the law,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. So we get into, so you found Taoism. Let's go there.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so you found Taoism and you started reading the Tao Te Ching and you noticed that this philosophy was really profound. You started grasping it better than you did Buddhism because Buddhism has a few too many rules that are kind of hard to stick with.
Well, honestly, I didn't even like I had read about Buddhism a little bit here and there, and I knew more about it than your average person. I just never really got into it. And I same thing. I grew up well Lutheran, more so, not thumping. We'd go with grandma on Christmas and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But
Mhm.
um, my parents were both pretty just open religiously. They didn't really care one
That's
way or the
good.
other. But for me, Taoism, when I started reading, because I read the Tao of Pooh. Um,
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
in the
weird.
beginning of this journey in like 2018 when I didn't know I was on a journey yet. It was just part of me trying to make myself better mentally. I had read that was a good one, so I read it and I didn't really understand it until after I finished it, and it was just kind of more the idea of just being, right?
Mhm.
Um, so once I started understanding like frequencies and vibrations and meditation and controlling all of your emotions to the best of your ability. As I was reading the Tao Te Ching, it just, I could understand it more because it wasn't like rules. It was a guide saying this is what you want. This is what you should do if you want to live a happy life. So that made a lot of sense to me. So when things were getting really bad in the beginning of this last year, excuse me, reading the Tao helped keep me humble. It helped me to bring my emotions in from where just it helped me not waste energy where I couldn't, you know,
Mhm.
whether that was with home work, uh, buying things, whatever. It just kind of helped me stay in the now. And I read the book through and through all the time. It's my book that if I need to just read something real quick before I get the day going, I'll flip open a random page. It's I still can't quote it, but what it helped me do also that really is hard for people to grasp is that it gave me an understanding of Jesus, but
Mhm.
in a very non-Christian way, because the way that Lao Tzu speaks in the Tao Te Ching is very similar to what I think Jesus is trying to tell people in Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, whatever, in the red words, because the way I started reading the Bible after understanding the Tao, to me, with frequencies and vibrations and having the power in yourself, like the Buddhists understand, um, I don't know. There's probably a way to walk on water, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And how the pyramids were built was probably with some kind of vibrational force. Um and I think Jesus was just another one of them guys. He was just another messenger. just like Hermes Trismegistus, just like Siddhartha, just like Lao Tzu, Jesus was just another one. And then uh yeah, people yeah.
Hmm. So do you have like a favorite quote from the Tao Te Ching?
Um so I do. It's chapter 31 and it's not the deepest one, but to me it really is the one that because I want my business to what is going to be the Warrior Garden.
Hmm.
This is the chapter that really just, as the
Okay.
person I was, made the most sense to me.
So I'm gonna read it.
Okay.
Good weapons are instruments of fear. All creatures hate them. Therefore, followers of the Tao never use them. The wise man prefers the left. The man of war prefers the right. Weapons are instruments of fear. They are not a wise man's tool. He uses them only when he has no choice. Peace and quiet are dear to the heart, and victory no cause for rejoicing. If you rejoice in victory, then you delight in killing. If you delight in killing, you cannot fulfill yourself. On happy occasions, precedence is given to the left, and sadness occasions to the right. In the army, the general stands on the left, the commander in chief on the right. This means that war is conducted like a funeral. When many people are being killed, they should be mourned in heartfelt sorrow. That is why a victory must be observed like a funeral. Okay, so tell me what this means to you. Like it is talking about war and you being a veteran, this makes a lot of sense to me. But I want to understand like why is it that you really are fond to this particular passage?
Yeah. I think because a lot of people that there's a lot of guys and gals that had to do some pretty terrible stuff in the last 20 years, right? And even before that. Um, and I think more people are starting to realize like how bad things were, and I don't want to say veterans are regretting what they did, but they're just that we're seeing what the government lied about.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things that they realize that young kids are dying for old men's wars, right?
Mhm.
And so when it comes to kind of just being, like I understand there's bad people out there and like we need protectors. I get it. And sometimes war does unfortunately need to happen because there's always the good and the bad, the yin and the yang, right?
Mhm.
Um, but how do we stop giving more power? Because nobody wants to kill, and it's different interpretations of the Tao, but like so in my version, he says his enemies are not demons, but human beings like himself. And so kind of what I minor parts in my book is just people that are well traveled might understand it, and I'm not very well traveled myself, but um people are literally people all over, but our media swings it so it doesn't look like that. And people all over just want happiness, and that's so where we we as soldiers, we don't get the decision on who we defend or not defend. And then we go to these wars and they do failed pullouts and leave people's deaths in vain. Um, so with this hopefully not World War III thing coming that a lot of people are up in arms about and on the, worried about, um, our protectors will always be here, but we should know to the core what we're protecting, you
Mhm.
know? And to me, living your happy life is being a warrior in the garden where you can raise your own crops, you can take care of your family, and you can take care of your land. And that you just part of being is just understanding, not thinking about the wars that are going on outside. And some people might say that's naive, but I've been on both sides. And if I can't control what the masses are doing or what the government is doing, then my best bet is to just know that in all ways of being a man, I can take care of my family.
Mhm.
And that means not wanting war because I don't want my kids to go to war. I don't want more people to die from war. I don't care what side they're on. A lot of it is worthless at this point. And now we're looking at trying to not go right into another bigger one.
Yeah. So, why did you write this book?
I wrote this book. Um, it's a guide to my son
Yeah.
because
What kind of message do you want to give him?
my book to him was that if he follows that book, that's the closest thing I can give him to a manual to living a happy life.
Mm. When I was reading your book, I came across something you said that really to me felt very profound. It was in the very beginning, and I thought, wow, people really need to get this. If they can just get this, their whole life would change. And you said, what I came to learn is everyone wants to be heard, but no one wants to talk in fear of being wrong or by not being someone else's version of normal. But how can we come together as humans if at the same time no one wants to listen to each other? This right here really hits home with me because this is the main reason why people argue. Everyone wants to be right. They want to be heard. And if it's not, they're so afraid that they're going to be wrong or somebody's not going to agree with them. And if you don't agree, it puts them in this panic or it causes a fight. You're not seeing my side. You're not understanding my feelings. This is how I feel. This is how we are as humans. All they care about, all people care about, is being, this is my feelings. I want to be heard. And if you're saying I'm wrong, then it's a problem. It makes me feel uncomfortable or it makes me feel worthless. And how do you get past all that when the reality is that it's usually somewhere in the middle? This is how I feel. This is how I feel. Here's the middle ground. I We have a new puppy and I didn't clean up after him one night, which I believe I did, but he says I didn't. And there was this delusion of I never do this,
Sure.
which I do it every day. And it wasn't even about that. And it really didn't matter if I said I was sorry or if I said I did it or I didn't do it. He wanted to stay in this space and exercise this motion, but it was
Sure.
really about something else. And it
Yeah.
was really about the stress. And it took me having to come into the situation and diffusing it with something completely different by coming at him and saying, I love you. You mean the world to me. You're so important to me. And I don't want to do this. And I'm not really sure what it's going to take to get you to understand, but I love you. And I just
Yeah.
kept on saying that. I love you. And that word, kind of going back to the vibration and the manifestation you were talking about, it just and suddenly it wasn't about the puppy, it wasn't about cleaning it up, it wasn't about the delusion. It was about I'm stressed out because I made a poor decision about buying this car. you know? And
Yeah.
kind of going back to what you were saying is there's it's not it there's this whole, when people get trapped in their emotions, but yet they want to be heard, they want to be understood, but there's this delusion around it sometimes when they get trapped in that.
Mhm.
And so when you and so how do we get around that? And that was your question. You said, but how can we come together as humans if at the same time nobody wants to listen to each other? It required for us to get past this. It required both of us to listen to each other.
Yeah.
I needed to put him in a safe environment for me to say, for him to understand that I'm willing to listen.
Oh, for sure.
I had to say, I love you. I love
Yeah.
you. I love you over and over again. I don't, and now all of a sudden it was like, whew, you know?
Yeah. And that's powerful for you to be able to do too, because a lot of people don't see that end. Um, that it does take two, you know. Because we've all been in them frustrating spots, whether it's the man or the woman, you know, and with the people, like I don't have an answer to that question. I just hope when someone reads it, they value the people immediately around them that much more, and they realize that miscommunication is what starts wars. Um, from possibly three of the most biblical books, probably all having the same flood, you know, miscommunication and causing wars, or the miscommunication that I see every day at work, the miscommunication that you'd see in the military, the miscommunication that spouses have in the home, you know, it's just some people don't know how to express their feelings, and that's something that psychology doesn't do a very good job trying to understand and explain. If you understand different psychologists' theories, certain things make a lot more sense to you.
Mhm.
Um, and that's why I like philosophy and theories more
Well,
than just saying
it
facts.
it seems like what I've found, like, with my husband or with friends, you can sit here and say, no, that's not true. I didn't do that. I don't feel that way. I don't do this. And when they get trapped in this, they want you to understand this is how I feel. It it almost feels like a trap for the other person, because how do you get past that? Like,
Right.
you know that you put the cap on the Coke bottle. So if it's flat, it's not because I didn't do it. You
Yeah.
know, it's there's this if I'm wrong, if you're telling me I'm wrong, if you're telling my feelings aren't validated or acknowledged, then there's something wrong with me. And if there's something wrong with me, that's an even bigger problem. And I think that this is where the breakdown happens, where people can't communicate. And I
Yeah.
love this question that you proposed, whether you have an answer or not. It's really a powerful question where you're asking, if we can't talk, if we can't come together as humans, if nobody wants to talk to each other, we have to be able to talk to each other. We have to be able to
Right.
listen. It's not about being right or wrong.
Right.
It's about really understanding where the other person's coming from. And a majority of most people exaggerate the truth because of what we're feeling, or we say things we don't mean. And then when you get called out for it, then when you settle down, you really don't mean it, right?
Right. Yeah.
And people will hold on to that, like, well, you said this, and it becomes now the law. So what have you been able to come to an understanding within yourself to manage the words that come out of your mouth?
I've gotten significantly better.
Mhm.
Um, that is part of the way I started viewing Taoism. And then, like I said, controlling that energy. I still do get upset when I feel like I'm not heard or disrespected.
Mhm.
Um, but for the most part, and this is kind of how I've always been, I just kind of understand it more now. I try to just be a relaxed, funny guy. That's pretty much how I am. Um, I wasn't as good being that relaxed guy. Like with my kids and everything before this was happening.
Mhm.
But now I definitely try to embrace like just making sure whatever moment it is that they're happy, you know, like we're gonna have fun or they're gonna have fun or just whatever they want because they were my reason to go on and when I that they are my importance now,
Well,
and
I want to ask you a question about something you just said. You said you still get upset when you feel like you're not being heard. What is it about that? Like, why is that important to you?
um well, one thing I heard from two old ladies talking on TV once was that one thing that men want more than sex is respect.
Hmm.
Um, and I have always felt that way. My dad was he believed in respect too, despite his flaws. Um, and Just when I feel like I have valid feelings or I was doing the right thing and it wasn't noticed and then I got blamed for doing the wrong thing or whatever. I just I don't know. It's messed with me for my whole life, and that's part of my anger that I have that I don't know if it was from the people who raised me in life, if it was from PTSD from the army or EMS. It's just it's one of the things that kind of gets me ticking
Hmm.
because I try to be a very subtle, relaxed person, and I try to do a good job at whatever my job is.
Well, I think that I don't know what you've done, or what these examples are, but
Yeah,
I can tell you as a female, um, that most women feel like respect is earned. And I personally have found that some people just don't deserve it,
sure.
even though they want it. I have somebody that I'm very close to that I love dearly who's married to somebody who is a complete asshole.
Sure.
I mean, we're talking the biggest asshole I've ever met in my entire
Yeah,
life. And this person said to his daughter one day while I was there, that was mouthing off to him and being very disrespectful, that he was her father and that she should respect him. And she just like, and then they look at me and they said, "What do you think? Don't you think that I'm right?" And I just looked at him and I said, "You're absolutely right. As a parent, she should respect you. But the
yeah,
problem is that respect has to be earned and you haven't earned it."
right.
And so it's a double-edged sword here. Children should respect their parents,
Oh
but
yeah,
parents are acting like crazy belligerent idiots. It's
right,
difficult to respect that behavior. If a person wants to be respected, they need to be acting honorable. And I know that most women feel that way. Um, but women today have become so self-reliant because they can't depend on a large percentage of the men in the world. Relationships don't last, and they're having to be, single parents, and there's a lot of things that ended up happening, and that they have to be strong.
yeah,
And so what they're doing now is they're comparing themselves to the person that's beside them. Like, have you earned this respect from me? Are you doing the things that I feel is, deserves that respect? And
right,
every woman is a little bit different in what they believe is, noteworthy of that respect.
sure,
Some people have too high of a, what we would call, like, their demands are too high. Like, some women put their expectations way too high for a man to be able to reach. And but I know this is probably a sore subject for you. I hope I didn't like hit you in a hard place there. But I mean, how do you feel about that? Like, do you see how, like, I understand that all men want respect, but it's
yeah.
difficult sometimes.
No, it does make sense, and unfortunately, if that was the case with us, then
Hmm.
that's on me, and I did think that I did a good job as a provider, but was I able to also be her safe space,
Mm.
and I understand that I what physically I was like I'm not afraid of other she doesn't need to be afraid of war coming to the house or whatever. I can protect her in that mentality.
Women in general, they need to know that they're not, it's not the physical protection, like the guard dog for the house that they need.
Yeah,
They need the emotional safety, like,
yeah,
because women in general wear their emotions on their shoulders. They speak how they feel, and until they can have a bad day, and what they need is that comfort from their partner.
Mm,
And sometimes that doesn't happen because the guy comes home and he's had a bad day
right,
and he just needs space.
right.
And that's where sometimes the conflict happens because he needs to go into his man cave and she wants she wants him right there next to him. Like, help me, help me cook or take care of the kids, relieve some of this comfort. I mean, relieve some of the stress from me so that I'm not just coming home into a madhouse or hold me for a minute because I've had a bad day. I want to talk about it.
Yeah,
But I found personally that men want to solve the problem versus just let her listen. I mean,
right.
just let her speak. And
Yeah,
it's like really what we want is a bouncy board, not the advice, because ultimately we were going to make our own decision anyway, right?
yeah.
and and then that upsets men. I've heard this from women because I have a lot of women clients,
Mm,
and they get the men will get upset and he's like, she comes to me, she tells me her problem, and I give her advice and then she ends up doing whatever she wants. It's like,
yeah,
why are you bothering me? Why are you even telling me this if you're not going to listen to me?
sure.
And and she's like, I didn't want your advice. All I wanted was to be able to have a safe space to be able to vocalize my emotions without you tripping out and exasperating what happened at work. you know
Sure.
you
Yeah,
need to quit your job or you need to tell that person this or whatever. She's gonna make her own decisions based on the situation and what she feels comfortable with. But women have to be able to allow those emotions to come out to be able to handle those situations. And
yeah.
have you figured that out yet? I'm just curious because a lot
Well,
of men haven't. And
no. Well, and see, a lot of women also don't know how to articulate that either.
mm,
And there are men that are more emotional and there are women that are stronger, but
mm,
yes, I do understand it because what I came to understand was the divine feminine energies,
yeah.
and that's where, like I had mentioned earlier, not sorry, not in the podcast, but Stoicism
Mm,
with them to me, it is being that respected father, it is being that strong husband, but it's also being a nurturing parent.
right.
It is That's what I wasn't a nurturer before until I started doing all this breathing and meditating and stuff like that, so now I can help her nurture my kids, which helps what I would think alleviate some of that, just some of the stress, because like household chores and stuff, that's whatever, that's shared.
Hmm.
Um, but it was always so chaotic that it was never really a break for either of us. Um, and sometimes people just aren't vibrating, I guess, on the right frequency and understand what each other need. Because I had a buddy tell me, in a much shorter version, pretty much, when you're talking to your spouse, they seem upset. Okay, before we start, are you looking for a solution or just to vent? And I think that's pretty powerful. And I never tried it. We didn't try it or whatever. Um, but it goes back to miscommunication,
Hmm.
right? Because as her husband, I married her for a reason. I had her children for a reason. And because of whatever my own issues were, I was constantly mad at myself, thinking that I wasn't doing enough, that I wasn't a good enough father, a good enough husband, a good enough provider. Even though we moved out to the country and we got 10 acres of land and a beautiful house, that wasn't enough for me. She was fine. She operates easily in the now.
Hmm.
I didn't understand that. I was actively trying to understand that. Um, things were, when I say this, I don't mean to say it's like low. Things were good enough. They weren't, if people think that things have to be great all the time, they're,
That's an illusion.
yeah, exactly. So what I didn't see was everything I had was good. Like it was,
Mhm.
I didn't need to keep trying, you
Yeah.
know?
So I'm gonna go back to something you said, a couple of things. Okay. So first off, you said if somebody could actively say, you're like kind of putting it on the man's responsibility to say, do you want a solution or do you need to vent? But ultimately, it's it's not just the man's responsibility to be able to actively make sure that there's balance in this relationship and that everything's going to go kosher. It's also the woman's responsibility to come up front and say, I just need to vent. Can I
Mhm.
do that?
Sure.
And,
Yeah, I understand you.
you know, I,
They do say it interchangeably together, but I know what you're saying. Yeah.
but what I guess what I'm trying to say is that we don't, this shouldn't be a blame game just for men. Oh, you didn't communicate the right way. So, it's the man's fault because he didn't, he just assumed because he didn't ask the question up front. Um, I mean, it is a good thing if the woman's not conscious or aware enough to be able to ask that, or to state what she needs. But women do need to step up and say, this is what I need.
Yeah. And
And
yeah. Sorry.
no, no, it's okay. I'm just saying it's important that women do that. They need to come up and say, this is what I need, instead of just assuming he knows,
Yeah.
because he doesn't know. And that's it takes a very consciously aware man who has gone through the process that you've gone through, purifying himself and really coming to terms with the responsibility of his actions, to be able to see this clearly and say, okay, is this what you want or is this what you want? And be able to really do that. But not all men can. And the
Right.
responsibility needs to be on both partners, that if he forgets to ask, she needs to come up and say, oh, by the way, can I just vent for a moment?
Mm.
Now, I made this very clear with my husband. I'll tell you something funny. Okay. So I made this very clear that when I need to talk about something, I'll say, look, I need to talk for a minute. And he's like, okay. So I start babbling off a whole bunch of stuff and he just sits there like deer in headlights. And then I turn around and I go, are you going to say anything? Are you just going to stare at me? And he's like, I'm just listening. And I'm like, well, do you have an opinion? He goes,
I
oh, you want my opinion?
get it.
Yeah, I made the mistake of telling him women just need to vent. And so he just sits there and listens and doesn't say a word. And
Yeah.
and so sometimes we need to be clear about our intentions. I need some
Yeah.
advice on this. Or I need you to banter with me for a moment and help me maybe look at some options. You know, there's
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways that we can start a conversation up with,
Yeah.
when it comes to this kind of stuff. But I think I think hearing what you're saying though, there is such a high level of conscious awareness that you're presenting, that you've learned, your communication style, about knowing that, sometimes we just need to be the listener. Sometimes we need to really be the person that just acknowledged, saying, just repeating what you say. I
Mhm.
hear that you're saying this, or I
Yeah.
hear that you feel this. And sometimes just listening can do the healing. Um, You said the second question I had is and I'm asking this for the audience because you said stoicism. Can you define that? Because maybe people may not know what that is.
My version of Stoicism, like I really like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, is just it's the origin kind of what a man is supposed to be. You're supposed to be able to go to war, but you're also supposed to be at home tending to your flock. Like you understand your strengths and your weaknesses. You understand that woman that had your children is your queen, and it's about being a strong person, but not someone that's easily disrespected or um they're not a pushover. It helps you create borders in your life, but healthy ones, that just say, if this is what you want, if this is what you're offering me, I don't need it. I already have this going on. So it helps. Where Taoism to me is a little more softer, more understanding. The Stoicism blend of it makes it just a little bit like almost like some off-brand militant pacifist, if you will.
Mhm. Okay. Well, I like the Taoism better. I really
But
I'm
that
a
goes
fan
back
of that.
to
Mhm.
if people don't understand each other and don't talk, because yeah, the start is now trying to get people to understand people in their circles better so it grows, right? But we're not in a part in the world where the everyday man is preventing wars yet, you know?
That's true.
So we
And
still
not
have to,
preventing the wars at home and in the family as well.
yeah. And so
So,
if we start doing that, there's um, less anxiety, less depression. I tell everyone if they want to start any version of their journey, stop paying attention to the news. That's the easiest way to start getting out,
mhm,
and people that stopped it for a week, I'm like, man, I felt lighter.
mhm.
And it's just because there's so much fear placed around everything that we do, everything that we see, everything that we're supposed to become. Um, it just winds us up, and then we get so wound up, we get stuck in these cycles. And that's where you see a lot of suicides. That's where you see people that are chronically depressed that can't get out of it because they're not focusing on just doing what they like to do and going about their own business, hanging out with their friends and family, creating their own life. They're worried about the possible life others might be creating for them.
Right. You said in your book, you were talking about happiness, and you said there's many different versions of happiness. You were talking about how do you define happiness. You want to address that because I thought that was really interesting because some people I've talked to have told me they've never been happy. And then some people say that happiness is just a momentary experience and they'll never get there permanently. I personally, I define happiness as not that giddy, excited, I just won the lottery feeling, but more just that Zen sort of peaceful space where things are flowing really well, like a smooth
Yeah,
river where you're just floating and there's not a lot of rapids.
yeah.
Um, if What do you think happiness means to you? Like, what were you trying to get across to people about happiness, getting there?
Um, that's the to me, being happy is being content.
Hmm.
Um, it's nothing pulling on you negatively or positively.
Hmm.
Obviously when you're with your kids or your pets or your friends or whatever, you have increased happiness, but
Hmm.
that's why you live in the moment and enjoy that moment. That's what makes that moment so much better because not every day can feel like that. But when you understand that no, you can't live every day just giddy as a schoolgirl. Every day is so perfect and amazing. But the more you practice thinking how everything that you have is amazing,
Hmm.
the more happy days you do have. And then, so once you realize that you're out of this chronic depression and you're like, wow, the days did get better. It's not every day, but maybe it's 2 days a week. You're like, oh, that was cool. I'm going to try to do that again. And then it starts happening. And people just, they think it's so hard to do that. But it's retraining your brain. Our brain is just it's our animal computer. And the
I
way
agree with that.
the everything that functions and fires in there and decides what we do or what gives us anxiety, because anxiety is just
Mhm.
fear. And so what I try to get people to do to find their happiness and what I wrote a lot about in the book is just listening to a different kind of music, because you can find music in every genre that has a story to a song that you like already.
Yeah,
You
but you're
know?
going right back to what you said originally, vibration.
Yeah,
So you're saying the answer, you're saying music, but
it's all one and the same.
the answer is words and vibration.
Yeah.
So when you're singing, you're vibrating. and you're using words, and a song has emotion. So
Yeah.
we're circling right back around to your original statement that all the answers come from words, vibration, and emotion.
Yeah, and your music can really. I listen to a spectrum of music. I'll listen from to Backstreet Boys to heavy metal, like
Yeah.
Lamb of God and stuff like that. But when I'm meditating, I'm not listening to Lamb of God, you know, like, because when once people start being in tune, they can actually watch their mood change to their music. Because a lot of the times when people are depressed, upset, they put on music that's going to make them more sad, upset.
Hmm.
You know, so when you start listening to different variations of music, even if it's not your favorite kind, it might boost your mood a little bit, you know, just to get you out of that funk or that feeling or whatever reason them lyrics affect you, you know. And then you get to see your growth later on. And you're like, man, I remember when that song meant this, and now I see where I'm at now and it means this. But it doesn't just have to be music. I think that's just a really easy one that people can do without feeling judged because they can do it by themselves, you know.
Yeah,
But if
it's an easy one.
if you have that gut or heart feeling to, I've always wanted to draw, I've always wanted to try racing, I've always wanted to jump out of a plane, like whatever it is, them are all forms, you know, are they anxiety or are they butterflies? And how come? And then once we try that activity, what did it do for us? You know, and why did we want to do that activity and why did it make us feel the way we felt? Because then so many people that are in the cog, all they do is go to work, go home, go to work, go home, you know, in and out. And a lot of people in the professions I've dealt with, they don't really have an identity, you know. They
Mhm.
don't have things that they do on their own that make them happy. And I became very much only a family man, so I kind of lost the things I liked to do.
Mhm.
Um, so by forcing myself to get out of the house, to try whitewater rafting, to get into photography, just little things, it was helping me live in the moment because I'm not a good photographer, but some of the cool pictures I've taken or the cute pictures of my kids, like that makes me happy. That can help me
Mhm.
look at the picture in the future and be back in that moment or whatever. You know, it helps me stay in the now because I'm happy with just trying to learn something new.
Yeah. Um, this is really interesting. You know, I love the techniques that you're offering up to the table that help you, or can help anyone.
Yeah.
So why did you call the book Fear of the Unknown?
Um, because I'm a manifester. Because for some reason, when I was really little, I had this movie in
Uh-huh.
my head that I wanted to make, and it was called Fear of the Unknown.
Oh.
Um, and because I was trying to find a book name this for so long, and I had a couple different names, uh, and one different idea I was originally thought I was trying to do, but it was a totally different book, and this one was built. But the fear of the unknown is just getting people to do unknown things. Like sometimes unknown is expressing how you feel. Sometimes unknown is trying something new. You know, it's being not afraid in life and understanding that like as long as you use your common sense and you research what you do or you look into it or you trust a friend that's going to take you to do something or whatever, like you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to shake up your own world for your benefit, or the universe is going to do it for you.
That's interesting that you said
So you
that.
have to control your own chaos, you know? So do little things that are they're not really chaos, you know? You just look at them as something you don't like. Why don't you like it? You know, if it's something you've tried and you don't like it, okay, fine, you tried it, you know?
Hmm.
Um, but so many people they always say, "Oh, I want to do this, I want to do that," and they don't.
Hmm.
And
Oh, I totally agree.
yeah.
It's and I think that they think they want to do it because they think that's what's going to ultimately make them happy,
Mhm.
but they don't ever really take action on it because it's another one of those delusions that they kind of live by. This is the answer to my happiness, but I can't do it, so therefore I can't be happy. You
Yeah.
know, it's it's interesting, you know, how the human brain works, but I I find that everything that you've talked about in your book and in this conversation that we've had today is right on point. Happiness is something that we have to, it's state of mind in which we create ourselves. And we ultimately have control over our emotions. We just have to step into that control and choose to decide how we want this to play out. Are we going to be more focused on me, and my ego and being right? Or is it that we value this relationship more than we value our ego?
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot that's been said here that has so much value. And so I really encourage everyone to go out and buy this book. It's called The Fear of the Unknown by Sidney Rigden. Did I say that correct?
Yep.
Okay, good. And this is uh, this is a beautiful read. He wrote this for his son, so it's a guide to, being happy, but it's also good for other people to understand that that path to happiness is really about like finding the happiness within yourself first, not what other people can do for you or how people agree with you or any of those things. It's not about the other person that's making you unhappy or happy. It's about you finding that internal happiness within yourself.
I just want to say too that I was very much less than a year ago. Uh, my kind of own fear of the unknown was doing the small easy things that actually work that I didn't believe would work, and that was being in a very very bad spot, saying today's a good day. Forcing myself to say that today is a good day and that tomorrow's going to be a really good day too. It was writing sticky notes on the mirror saying, "You're a good dad, you're a good provider, you're a good husband." Letting my kids draw little notes and letting me stick them on the mirror just so they were reminders every day that you have to literally force yourself every day to get better. And um, it's on you. It's not on anybody else. It's not on the doctors. If you have a good therapist, that's great and they can help you, but it is in you. And it starts with the literal simple phrases that come out of your mouth every day and the appreciation you have for what you have.
So I hope that this has helped you. And thank you so much for listening to The Dark Room and with our special guest, Sidney Rigden. And go out and get the book. It's a very short read. It's a really good read. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.